my name is Steph. Welcome back to Wild Patch Homestead. Today I'm making bread. I make bread usually twice a week, and I just thought I'd bring you guys along. It's a really easy recipe, but turns out like melt in your mouth. It's just incredible bread. It's a really simple recipe. There's not really any kneading as such, just a bit of folding and a bit of wait time, and that's pretty much it. So let's go learn some new bread making skills, and it's a really good one for starters. So anyone learning how to make bread from the very beginning, this is a perfect recipe for you. So if you have heard of anyone that wants to make bread and has been struggling, send them this video. Trust me, it's a game changer. So to make this recipe, I start off with just plain flour. This isn't fancy flour, this isn't special flour, it is the cheapest flour I can get, so it's from Aldi. So to make 2 loaves, you're going to add 6 cups of flour. Now look, mine aren't perfectly level, I just am scooping it out and dumping it in. You don't have to be all, particular about it, which is probably why I really like this recipe. 5 and 6. And then we're going to add in instant yeast from Coles, Woolies, anywhere like that. Again, really easy to get. So this one is 4 teaspoons. Now I keep my yeast in the fridge. It means that it's temperature controlled and it's a lot happier in there. So I would recommend, if you do get such a large amount of yeast like this, pop it in the fridge. Salt, 4 teaspoons. It doesn't have to be pink Himalayan salt. It can have whatever you've got in your pantry. Ooh, got chunky bits in there. There we go. Lovely. And you give it a bit of a mix. So I use a knife. I like to work with a bread knife. That'll do. And then I just kind of tuck it up to the sides. Now I'm just going to add the water. This is warm water, so it's not too hot because you don't want it too hot because it will kill the yeast. But it is definitely, I don't know, just a bit above lukewarm. But that's it. So we're just going to chuck that in. I would say it's about 4 cups, but I really go off the feel of the bread, and I'll show you what I mean. So, I don't know, I've added 2/3 of the water. Just start giving it a mix. And I think this really varies as well when I make bread, the amount of water I need based off of the weather for the day. Maybe there's a change in the flour, the humidity, I don't know, but I just roll with it. You want this to be a really wet, sticky dough. You're not going to knead it. So you don't want it to be at that point where you can knead it at all. You want it nice and like a wet dough, really. So I'm using the knife to kind of cut through as well as I go. It just helps really incorporate the flour. So for my liking, that is still too dry. I like it a little bit more wet than that. Not by much, just a little bit. So I'm just going to add a bit more. That'll do. I'm not going to go any further than that. It's combined. But see how it's really sticky. Like you wouldn't be able to do anything with that to texture it or anything. Perfect. Now, on my list of things to do is to make little covers for them with elastic around it, but I haven't got to it yet. The reason I want to do that is because if you make your own bread, you do find yourself using a lot of plastic wrap, and I really hate having to use plastic wrap, but I honestly have tried other things. I've tried the beeswax wraps. They don't stick nice and neatly, and I really struggle with that. And they're like really awful to clean all the bread off of. So that's all I do, and then I have a tea towel here. I'm gonna put it to bed for, usually I'd say I'd do it for 3 hours. Just let it sit for 3 hours. It will come right. You need a really big bowl. This is my biggest bowl that I have, and it like fills this up. Okay, so yeah, definitely give yourself plenty of room for it to grow, and yeah, just pop it somewhere. If you've got a warmish spot, so if I have my dehydrator running, I'll sit it there. I'll also put it on the oven, like on my stovetop if I've got the oven running, because there's vents at the back and it creates like a nice warm air coming through. And so I don't really have anything like that today going at the moment, but I am just going to still pop it by the stove. If it's really, really, really cold and you really can't get your bread to rise, pop it in the oven. So turn the oven so it's on but no heat. And then the light will be on, and it creates like this really nice warmth in the oven. So not too hot to cook it, but enough for it to rise. But yeah, they're my tips. And that's how I'm helping at the moment. I'm just trying to think of ways with winter coming. I know my house is getting really cold, and yeah, so I'm just trying to think of alternative methods at the moment. So I hope they help a little bit. All right, don't mind the state of my oven. But because we're doing 2 loaves, I've got 2... I guess Dutch ovens, camp ovens, cast iron, glass, whatever you want to use, containers in the oven. Now, you got to have a lid, and make sure you're using something that doesn't curl back in on itself, because obviously you can't get the bread out. And that may seem so obvious to you, but I did that when I first started baking bread. I bought this really cute Dutch oven, and it just slightly curled in a bit on the edge, and I couldn't get my bread out. So there you go. This is great. The cast iron camp oven, BCF, Anaconda, Aussie Disposals, they've all got them. So yeah, that's kind of my preference, but this one makes a smaller loaf, which is really cute, and I like to give that one away usually to friends and stuff. So that's what we're going to do. The oven is going to go on, and 225 on mine. And then we're just going to, mine takes almost an hour to get to that kind of temperature. So just until it's up to temperature, and then we're going to sort the bread out. Okay, it has been almost 3 hours. Yeah, so 3, 4, 5, it's almost 6 o'clock. So it's been almost 3 hours. So let's see if our bread rose. How good does that look? So that is awesome, and it's really fluffy, and yeah, so it's perfect. That is exactly what we want to see. It's doubled in size. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull pretty much half out of the bowl. So my little trick is I normally just use the tap, but for today's version of events, I'm going to use this cup of water. It's gonna help prevent your hands sticking to the dough and making a whole hot mess. I also have some flour here, and I'm going to dust the bench, and it's just gonna, what we're doing here is just trying to prevent sticking. We don't want too much mess, and really if you have the right techniques, you'll find it a lot easier. Actually, right now I'm gonna get my cast iron and my saucepan out of the oven. It just makes it a lot easier for me just to quickly pop them straight in. So I'll do that first. I also have 2 pieces of baking paper already cut and just sat to the side ready to go. I do find with these things that the more organized I can be now, the easier that whole transition is, and yeah, it just goes a lot smoother. Okay, here we go. So a couple of tools that I'm going to use. This is a dough scraper. It's from Kmart. It was a couple of bucks. It just makes it so much easier just to transition it. I'm not going to use this, but sometimes I do. This just helps me scrape the dough out of the bowl. I might need it, who knows. But again, Kmart, couple of bucks, really cheap. They're just handy little tools to have. Okay. Alright, so this is a big bowl, so it is really heavy, and I just try and get it as close to where I want it. So use the water and see how it just kind of like comes off then. Anywho. It's probably about half. I want a small one and a big one, so I'm not too fussed if it doesn't go perfectly half and half. Okay, so again, a bit of water, and you can just stretch and fold, stretch, fold, or you can just fold. I also do it just that way. I just literally just like pull it, fold it. So you kind of do it about 6 times. There's really no, like, you can do it specifically and like really give it a good stretch, or you can just kind of like give it a bit of a fold, and then I just tuck it in like this, and kind of the top gets all, and that's really it. Onto my baking paper, done. Alright, we're going to do our second one. So I have just popped that into the cast iron. I'm just going to use my dough thing just to show you the difference, I suppose. But this thing works great. It's just a bit of silicone. It just ensures you get all that dough out. Sorry, I'm totally blocking it. I'm just used to dumping it straight out and not considering where I am. Okay, alright, there we go. So you've got a couple of options here. I mean, sometimes I sprinkle a bit of stuff over it. You can use this to stretch and fold, but I honestly just find it so much quicker and easier with my hands. But yeah, there you go. It's all come together. So I do it this way up because this like all crumbles apart and becomes like this beautiful split, very rustic split open loaf, and it's gorgeous. Or if you want to try, like, you know, with the, I don't know what the real tools are called, like the patterns, you can just flip it. When you put it onto your thing, just like flip it over onto your baking paper, and then you can, and I have done that, but honestly this turns out really great and it saves me time. But if you want to be artsy, you can definitely do it with this type of loaf of bread. It's really a great easy bread to learn and start with, because you can play around with things like that, or you can just, like, you know, master the skill of making a loaf of bread. Alright, so I guess another little tip from me, I suppose, is that I grab, so 2 kind of corners and then another 2 kind of corners. Stops your bread sliding around and gives it a nice little basket. Okay, so you're gonna set your timer for half an hour now. So lid on half an hour. And then what I do is 12 minutes, 12 to 15 without the lid. But I probably don't time that one as much. I try and go off like how brown the top is of the bread. My husband likes it with a couple little burnt bits. So I generally go just over the 15-minute mark probably. But yeah, if you're really going off the recipe, it's 12 to 15 minutes and it should be beautiful and brown on top and perfectly cooked through. Alright, so I'm just taking the lids off now. You can see they're partially browned, and by taking the lid off, that's going to really brown them up nicely. Nice and crunchy. Look at that. The natural split in it, I just think is so beautiful. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for the bread. So I just grab it by the paper and pop it on a baking rack and let it cool off. And I usually just wrap it in a tea towel and pop it in the pantry. And we eat it within usually about 3 days. I'd say 2-3 days. And the loaf is gone anyway. With a family of 5, you know, and everyone likes like that fresh warm bread. One of these I am actually going to cut up right now and add like a garlic and chive butter into it, so we can have that with our pasta for dinner. So that'll be really lovely. And the next one is ready for like school lunches and whatnot. But yeah, I hope that helps. I hope you enjoyed the recipe and all the little steps along the way. Sorry about the sound earlier. I forgot that my fan was on and it is just really, really loud. Alright, well, it's getting noisy in my house, so I'm going to go. But I do hope that you have really great success with this recipe. Any comments, any questions, please pop them down below. I'd love to hear from you all. If you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, that would be amazing. And I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you. Bye.